Now, building up the Montreal Canadiens, right? Team building. The acquisition of Noah Dobson, I think, shocked most people around the National Hockey League on Friday's draft. It was the biggest move made on a very busy weekend around the National Hockey League. Well, I don't think the Canadiens are done. I don't think they should be done. We know their cap situation isn't great. They're right up against it, obviously. But what about potential moves as we get into NHL free agency? One name that's been around, as Marco D'Amico helped break the Noah Dobson to Montreal story, Jordan Kyrou's name keeps floating around. It's not going away. And when Jeff Gordon comes out and says something, we like to pay attention. And one of the things he had said 2 months ago was that, yes, we know we need a 2C, but we could also use a winger who could drive a line. Where are we today with that narrative around building up this Canadiens team as it relates to a line-driving winger? Is that more likely, or the acquisition of the vaunted 2C? Where are we today, Marco?
Let's start it like this.
Yeah.
A little anecdote.
Oh, I'm paying attention.
The 2025 draft saw, 7 centers go top 10?
Yeah. 7 centers go top 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not by chance.
Right.
And then you see, a team like the Philadelphia Flyers move mountains. Although I still found that the Pittsburgh Penguins sold that pick rather cheaply, but they moved mountains to go and trade up to number 12 to pick up Nesbitt, who many project as a middle 6 center.
Okay.
Flyers seem to think he'll be more of a 2C. Most people think he's probably going to be more of a 3C. And they moved 2 first-round picks, 22 and 31, if I remember correctly, to get up there and get him. So think about this. A regular 2C would cost more than that
right
now.
Right.
And that just goes to show you the value of centers on this market right now is at an all-time high. And it's just
interesting.
Maybe not going to happen this summer, because if I'm going to call him a tweener without disrespect. If a tweener top 6 player potential costs you 2 first-round picks, the Canadiens traded 2 first-round picks and Emil Heinemann for a number 1 right shot defenseman. See how that does not add up?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think the cost for a bona fide 2C would look like?
Oh my Lord! I was just about that. They don't have it. They don't have the.
Not right now. Not right now.
They're not willing to pay it anyway,
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of emotional attachment to a guy like Michael Hage as well. So you got to keep that into consideration. And the Canadiens are going to be in a contending window. Do they think that Michael Hage can be that cheap 2C while they get into that competitive window, while they wait for the salary cap to increase, while their other contracts become better and better value deals to add other players to that? So there's a lot that goes into how you think out your roster, especially now that the cap is rising. Right. So to me, if you can't get the 2C and you have to improve the top 6, then you have to go and get yourself a left wing. You have no choice. Or a righty that could play on his off wing, right? Like either applies, because Demidov is a lefty that plays on the right wing. So it doesn't really matter. And in fact, I don't think in the top 6 right now there's a winger that plays on the correct side anyway.
Right,
so
It
doesn't really matter. So you go and get yourself a top 6 wing. That's the reason we've heard the name of Jordan Kyrou when they were looking for that, because the Canadiens at the time, and I released this Monday, I believe. No, Thursday, I believe. It was Tuesday. Noah Dobson and Jordan Kyrou were the 2 names I heard the Canadiens on the most.
Yeah.
And you look at what they like in a guy like Kyrou, the speed, the agility, the long-term contract that, in my honest opinion, is good value.
Yeah.
And the fact that he would fit well in that team, I really like the way that they that he puts together his offense. And I feel like the Canadiens are predicated on that kind of speed and talent. And, if the Canadiens also like JJ Peterka, and, obviously he went to Utah, a lot of teams were looking for existing pieces. Now that the draft is done, teams are going to see how things wiggle out on the free agent market, likely. But the thing with a guy like Kyrou is he was made available primarily because his no trade clause kicks in on July 1st.
Right.
So it's interesting to see like where he would fall, where he would be, and if they would consider a trade even after the fact. Because on the floor here, I heard that I don't think he's long for St. Louis. I don't think that's going to be a long-term fit. And there's a feeling amongst the St. Louis writers and people in the know that he would be available. Now, whether or not he's traded to Montreal is another thing entirely, but it goes to show you that the Canadiens are still out there talking and looking for top 6 talent. So to me, I think they need a guy to run shotgun with Ivan Demidov one way or the other. And if you bring in a strong option for the top 6, well, then, it doesn't really matter who the center is. The center just has to be a complementary piece and perhaps could be a really good way to, relancer a guy like Kirby Dach, who would be coming back and is apparently in the best shape of his life.
But why? The same question I had about Noah Dobson and why he couldn't find common ground with the New York Islanders, to me applies to a 26-year-old core piece who's locked up for the foreseeable future in St. Louis. Is why is Jordan Kyrou available? Why would he be available for a team that made the playoffs last year and is looking to obviously continue to improve, just like the Montreal Canadiens are? What's your hockey guess on why a 26-year-old locked-in forward has been out there? As you pointed out, he's up. His NMC kicks in on July 1st. So, what is it for you?
I think that it's more of a right place, right time situation. I think that the Blues feel like they can make this move because a guy like Jimmy Snuggerud, for example, is coming up the ranks. A guy like Dalibor Dvorsky is coming up the ranks. The Blues have done a really good job of retooling in this time frame, and I think that they also, if you look at the guys that they're bringing in, Otto Stenberg, also a first-round pick. We talked about Snuggerud. Zachary Balzuc was one of the best rookies in the NHL this year, and they just drafted Justin Carbonneau. They're just drafting wingers.
Wow.
Right? They got 4 first-round pick wingers in the last 4 drafts. Like, that alone says enough to me, especially with a guy like Buchnevich signed long-term as well. Like, I just don't see I don't how do I say this? I don't understand why a team would load up on the wings and then keep them if the idea was to then also keep a guy like Kyrou. So something would have to give. Either they're using these guys in trades soon, or they're worried that, if they don't trade Kyrou now, in the same way that the Canadiens felt that if we don't trade PK Subban now before his NMC kicks in, well, then we're stuck with them. And he's going to block any trade, and we're not 100% sure about him long term.
Yeah, the Kyrou reminds me so much of Subban.
So that's the mindset. That's the reasoning why the timeline would make them more apt to listen. And listen, Jordan Kyrou is on the table for JJ Peterka. Like, I can tell you this. It was something that I heard over here and had confirmed to me. So it's not like he's not available. And it's just he's not available for anything, right? Like, he's available for specific pieces.
Correct.
So I want to move him off the table entirely because, there's a very good chance that at the moment of this broadcasting, he may not even be available.
Well, totally. Anymore. And in the hypothetical world, I don't think I'm ready to see the Montreal Canadiens make adventurous decisions with real roster players for Jordan Kyrou. I think I'm of the opinion I'm good with what they did, right? Like, they didn't have a pick in the first round. So what did they do? They packaged a couple of their second round picks and moved up to grab a guy they had in their top 20 in who they ended up getting. I mean, if that's true, quite the coup by Ken Hughes to get a top RHD, get a guy they had in their own inner self-scouting of a top 20 guy who they got in the second round. And now I'm not so sure the Canadiens, I think the Habs, Marco, are still in discovery mode when it comes to Reinbacher, to Mailloux, to Dobesh, to Fowler. I don't think they should be in the business of looking at those guys. I'm not saying they are, but I think it would be a misstep to trade any one of those guys for someone like Jordan Kyrou. I don't think the timeline syncs up to me.
I don't know. I like, to me, the timing is different, and some teams are all like it really is what is going on behind the scenes sometimes that has more sway than what's going on the ice and the roster building. And so, like, sometimes, like, it's the aspect of the game that I think we're the least privy to is just the people and how they connect and what the vision is and what they want to do. Like, maybe Kyrou is just like, F this. I want to be on a team on the upswing. I want to be on a team that, and not to say the Blues aren't. I mean, they did make the playoffs, and they were almost the same situation as Montreal.
Exactly.
But maybe the feeling is that retool is doomed, right? Because their defense is pretty old. Like, and they keep drafting wingers. So, I mean, what does that tell you, right? Like, they're probably looking for a young defenseman, or they're probably looking like, I wouldn't be surprised, and this may happen, this may not happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if, Kyrou's name was in discussions for a guy like Bowen Byram out of Buffalo. I think that would be a good way of them flipping out Byram and Peterka and still having, players in place to play that position. So I feel like the Canadiens are in that upswing situation where it could make sense for them to go and get a guy like Kyrou, because it looks like it's a far more sustainable rebuild as opposed to a retool on the fly, where your best players on that retool are still a couple of years away. It almost feels like Montreal in 2018, 2019, 2020, right? Where their core were still like 30 plus outside of Nick Suzuki, right? And I think that's the difference. Nick Suzuki, Kakaniemi at the time, like that's what this feels like in St. Louis.
Interesting. So, like, Nick Leddy, Cam Fowler, Colton Parayko, talking about some of the blue liners in St. Louis. I'm going to put you on the spot. I know it's never your favorite.
And they just lost Krug, right?
Exactly. Would a package that begins with David Reinbacher, is that deep, talented, good enough in a hypothetical?
That's probably what it would need. What you would need to pull a guy like Kyrou out of there.
Yeah.
I just don't know if the Canadiens are going to go down that route.
Wow.
I don't. I think they would probably push.
I would explore it. I would not. Why?
Because you don't have to trade like top six wingers, albeit valuable, are the least valuable premium position in hockey.
Okay. Yeah.
After a goaltender. So to me, you look at the way drafts go down, you look at the way that things go down. Like, Kyrou himself was not a top pick, right? Like, so it's always about how you build out a team.
Yeah.
And to me, when you have a guy like Kyrou and you have a guy like David Reinbacher, would you trade David Reinbacher in his prime for what he's projected to be for a guy like Kyrou? I personally would not.
Man, Kyrou's got 70 points, he's got almost 40 goals.
Okay. Everybody wants to trade. Everybody was willing to trade Cole Caulfield for Noah Dobson 3 months ago. He's a 70-point winger.
I know.
But that's what I'm trying to say. If you're going to have a Reinbacher who's going to be potentially a top, like a top 3 player on your team in terms of defense and a potential top pair right shot D in his impact,
maybe you're right.
That's worth more than a 70-point winger generally.
Because, like, to be a hater, bro, like, who's going to play like good defense on the Canadiens?
Yeah.
Who's going to play good defense?
That's the other thing, Gooley and Reinbacher. But
so maybe
the
that's
thing to keep into consideration is it wouldn't be 1 for 1, and I think that's where I would probably like top off, right? Because it probably like Reinbacher plus, and it's just like it just doesn't make any sense to me because you've just made your defense, especially your right defense, now an organizational strength almost overnight.
Well said.
And so, like, I don't necessarily see the need to have to get weaker at that position when you have some top 6 potential forwards coming up in Hage and Zarovsky.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens with LJ Mooney. Got a lot of thumbs up on him over here.
And I like this kid. I like the makeup of this LJ Mooney guy.
Yeah,
I know, he's a small little guy.
I know. Here come the comments, but he's 5'7". I get it.
I know.
I'm not saying he's 100%. I'm just saying if he hits, he's there.
Yeah.
He's either a top 6 player or he's not.
Well, I heard that about the second round. The guy, the Russian kid. Yes. I heard.
I don't buy that. I don't buy
heard
that.
he's
I think
either he's going to
Zorowski.
hit, or he's not.
I think Zorowski could also play on a third line. I'm not
Okay.
The Canadiens. If the Canadiens are going to look at the Florida Panthers. If the Canadiens are going to be anything close to competitive for a Stanley Cup, you're going to need some top 6-ish guys playing on your third line.
Yes,
So,
well said.
totally okay.
Yeah.
Totally okay.
That's Marco D'Amico. Follow him at MN D'Amico with RG Media.